Alright, we are here in beautiful sunny Florida, and today, people, we are going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night 103, Rodriguez versus Penn in Phoenix, Arizona. And man, pretty bad card to start off the year with, to be honest. There is a couple gems in here, some really solid fights, but there is also a lot of really bad fights that should not be on a UFC card, but nonetheless, we will be breaking down the entire 12 fight card here. And I do appreciate you all tuning in and listening to my point of view here. It's much appreciated. And I do want to say, yesterday I did upload my very first episode of a new series I am doing called The Hardcore's Delight. I realize it's not going to be for everybody. Basically, if you're a hardcore fan and you watch like most of the regional events like I do, like Invicta, Bellator, all that good stuff, I would highly recommend checking that out, man. Basically, I just run through and I'll feature like one or two regional events. I'll do a breakdown for them, and then I'll basically run through all the big notable regional events that are happening in that month. I'll quickly talk about some of the notable fights, give small predictions, and then I talk about recent UFC signings, guys to look out for. Like I talked a lot about David Branch, Tom Duquesnoy, you know. All those guys, man. UFC's been signing some good people, but nonetheless, let's get into this card, man. Some of these fights I'm really not looking forward to talk about, but it's the way we do things here, man. We will talk about a fight no matter how bad it is. But starting out with a bad fight, we got Cyril Asker minus 125 taking on Dmitry Smoliakov plus 105. Man, so start off here with not just the worst fight on the card, but possibly the worst fight the UFC can make, man. Both guys coming off getting finished in their UFC debuts, but I'd say that Asker showed me a little bit more skills than Dimitri did in his debut. Dimitri really had nothing for Luis Henrique, and he gassed out bad in like 3 minutes. And you know, this is one of those fights I'd kind of like to wait till weigh-ins to see if Dimitri comes in better shape. It's one of those fights where I want to see the stare down before I even make a solid pick, but stylistically, I actually think Asker has the slightly better striking and movement than Dimitri, but Dimitri has the better chin here. I could see Asker absolutely getting caught in that first round, but I do think if Cyril Asker can survive that first round and let Dimitri tire himself out, and I think Asker can get it to the ground in that second round and work his superior jiu-jitsu. That's where I believe he has the biggest advantage in this matchup, and that is what I think happens. I am going to go with my official pick for Cyril Asker via a second round sub. And then when it comes to betting, man, I really wouldn't bet on either of these guys. The only thing I would consider, and I did consider, was the does not go the distance, but I'm just passing, man, because I could absolutely just seeing this be a 3 round slop fest. But moving on here, we got another bad one, but we got Joachim Christensen minus 235 taking on Bojan Mihajlovic. Butchering that, but it's all good. I'm sure nobody gives a fuck. But so like I said, another bad big man fight here, and I do think Christensen has some decent skills, though, and we could see an impressive performance with him, which could make for some fun violence. Honestly, I think a big factor here, probably the biggest factor, is how is Bojan going to look at 205 pounds in his debut here, man? I do think it's his natural weight class. You know, he's 5'11". A 5'11" guy should not be fighting in the heavyweight division. But man, I just think Joakim, he's honestly better in every aspect of the fight game, but Bojan does pack bombs. I will give him that. He's got some power in his hands, and Joakim is 38 years old. He's got a bit of tall man defense, so just because of that alone, I really can't trust a bet on him or anything. Although I did consider it, but man, that up minus 235, that's just too much, man. I could absolutely see Bojan knocking him out, and obviously plus 195, that's not enough to take the shot on Bojan. But basically, how I see this going, I see Bojan just winging bombs in the first round, then gassing out, and Joakim capitalizing in the second round with his much superior Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, similar how I see the last fight going. So my official pick is going to be Joakim Christensen via a second round submission. Also considered the does not go the distance for this fight, but ultimately I passed. So this is just another pass fight here for me. But moving on to a fight I am actually somewhat interested in. We got Walt the Big Ticket Harris minus 140 taking on Chase Sherman plus 120. So yeah, like I said, man, a little bit better of a big man fight here. Walt Harris is an interesting guy to me, though, man. He's huge for the even the heavyweight division. He's athletic. He packs bombs, but he's got a little bit of a gas tank problem and a little bit of a chin problem too. But Chase Sherman, on the other hand, he's super basic with his striking. I'd say the best aspect of his game is probably those leg kicks, but for a heavyweight, he doesn't possess much power, so I doubt he can capitalize on Walt's chin, and he also doesn't have the best gas tank either, so I don't think he can capitalize on Walt Harris's gas tank either. Sherman, he has a good chin as well. Or on the other hand, I should say Chase Sherman actually does have a good chin. So, a Walt Harris KO is unlikely, but it is possible. You just never know with these big ass dudes. But I do see this going 3 rounds. I think Walt Harris is going to start off super strong in those first 2 rounds, but maybe Chase Sherman takes that third round. I'd say he slightly has a better gas tank, but it's nothing significant. But worth noting, I do think Walt Harris has a decent sized wrestling advantage and could absolutely utilize that. And another thing, I've said this on Twitter, man, I think Walt Harris is still a guy that's improving. And I've said it many times, an improving fighter is a fighter I like to bet on. And I don't think Chase Sherman's improving at all. He's just very basic, unathletic to me. And Walt Harris, man, he did a lot better in those 3 rounds against Shamil Abdurrahimov than Derek Lewis did, and Derek Lewis is a very highly touted prospect. So, my official pick here is going to be Walt Harris via a 30-27, and I do have a bet on Harris. I have him in a parlay that I will indeed talk about at the end, of course, stick around to the end where I go over my bets. I am currently sitting at 6 bets, which may sound like a lot, but that's a small amount for me. I usually have somewhere around 9 or 10 bets a card. Just sitting at 6 for now. Probably going to end up with 8 by the end of the fight week. But moving on here, we do have Jocelyn Jones Lybarger plus 125 taking on Nina Ansaroff minus 145. So just continuing the streak of bad fights here. We got 2 bottom of the barrel strawweights here that probably will never go on a big run. I know Amanda Nunes, the girlfriend of Nina Ansaroff, claims that Nina Ansaroff is going to be the champ one day, but I think that's just kind of clear that she's just being supportive of her girlfriend, you know? I don't think Nina Ansaroff has the skills to ever become champion, but man, I see this fight just being a super close split decision kind of bout. I do think Nina does have the superior skills. However, Jocelyn's a very tough girl. She's the much tougher girl. She pushes the pace more, so I do think that's just going to make for an even fight here. It's kind of hard to get a good read on it, but I do see the majority of the fight with Nina Ansaroff getting the better of the stand-up and kind of picking Jocelyn apart just a little bit. But my official pick is going to be Nina Ansaroff via a 29-28 decision, and I do have the over in a parlay. And also, just because I think the fight is so close, even though I'm picking Nina, Jocelyn Jones Lybarger at what plus 125. That's not a bad bet in my opinion. I'm personally not doing it. I'd need a little bit more, like plus 140, but I wouldn't hate you if you did it, even if you were picking Nina Ansaroff. But other than that, I would just take the over. Other than that, it is a pass. But moving on here, we do have Devin Powell plus 200 taking on Drakkar I don't know if it's close or Klose, but I'm calling him close, or Klaus, whatever it is. Not really sure. But man, this is actually like the first really decent fight of the card, and funny enough, it's between 2 newcomers. But really though, man, I do think Klaus, he is the much more superior fighter and trains at the much better gym in the MMA lab. I'd say that Powell, really his only advantage here is his BJJ, and he has more proven toughness, but it is worth noting that Close, he hasn't been put in the bad spots that Powell has, to be fair. I do like Close to pick apart Powell here standing while meanwhile stuffing takedowns over the course of 3 rounds. Maybe he gets the finish, but Powell is a very tough dude. So my official pick is going to be Drakkar Klose via a 30-27 decision. Realize I said his name about 30 different ways in that breakdown, but with betting, I would just say pass on this fight. Minus 240, that's a little too much to pay for an unproven debuting fighter, even though I do think Klose is the much more superior guy. But moving on here to a fight I am pretty excited to talk about. We got Tony Martin minus 240 taking on Alex White plus 200. Now, yeah, like I said, this is like the first really decent fight of the card. To Tony Martin, he's a guy I am super high on. I think his grappling is just absolutely exceptional. I've been high on this guy for a very long time. I think Tony Martin is the truth. He's 27 years old in his athletic prime. And I just think based on his grappling, it's so good that I really think he can destroy half of the division with that alone, man. Like, really think highly of the dude. But Alex White, he just comes off to me as he's a solid fighter. Absolutely, he's no bad fighter, but he's just plain solid, slightly below middle of the pack guy. Worth noting, both guys are coming off a 1 year layoff, and Tony's coming off that neck surgery everyone's talking about, but we don't know if that's a negative. It really could have possibly affected him. I mean, people get surgeries for a reason. It helps them. It's not like he's an old man getting a surgery. He's a young dude, still in his prime. The surgery, absolutely, in my opinion, is going to help him. He took the right amount of time off. I really do think it's a positive thing, man. Listen to, shout out to James Lynch. Listen to his interview with James Lynch. He was super adamant that he's in the best shape of his life now, and I believe him, man. I know fighters, they'll say that every fight, but I believe Tony Martin when he says it. He comes off as a very straight shooter to me, but when it comes to this fight, I think just White hasn't shown me anything that he can stuff Tony Martin's takedowns. And, whether Martin gets the finish or not, I see him at least dominating this fight on the ground. But if White can somehow keep it standing, I do think it's even dead even on the feet, man. I think Tony Martin, even he's the much longer guy, and he has a good jab. I honestly think maybe he even can get the better of the stand up. Who knows? He does have. I forgot to look up what the reach advantage is, but I know it's got to be somewhat significant. Alex White coming in on short notice. He's coming up from 145. Tony Martin's going to have a big size advantage here. I am just overall very high on Tony Martin on this spot. It is a little unfortunate how big the line is on him, but it is warranted in my opinion. But my official pick is going to be Tony Martin via a first round submission. And I do have Tony Martin in a 1 unit parlay. I did want to have a little bit more than Tony Martin, but I think 1 unit is good enough for now because there is the neck surgery. It could be a negative. He is coming off a 1 year layoff, so and the price is a little high. So just 1 unit on Tony, but I am pretty confident in that. So moving on here, we do have Alexei Oleinik minus 140 taking on Victor Pesta plus 120. So, man, getting back to the sloppy heavyweight fights, huh? Victor Pesta, honestly, he's one of the worst fighters on the roster. I mean, he was plus 600 to Konstantin Orokin for a reason, although he did win that fight with his toughness, but his toughness is really all he has. He is just not a skilled guy at all. Alexei Oleinik, in my opinion, he is regressing a little bit. He is just reaching that point where he's just now starting to regress, so he's still very skilled and very compatible, but he didn't look too good in his last fight, but I still think this is a great matchup for him, man. I can see him knocking Pesta out, like Pesta got knocked out in his last fight. But more likely here, I would say more likely is Alexei Oleinik going in there and submitting him with his massive BJJ advantage. I see a close, maybe a close first round striking exchange. Maybe give that to Oleinik, but I do like Alexei Oleinik to go in there and submit him in the second round after warming up a little bit. So Not much to go over here in these heavyweight fights, but my official pick is going to be Oleinik via a second round submission. And at the price it's at now, I do like a bet on Oleinik. Wouldn't hate you for that. I actually do have a play on Oleinik. I bet the in the distance. I bet Alexei Oleinik wins in the distance at plus 171. I bet zero point 0.7 units to win 1.2. So moving on. Very talked about fight here, man. We got Frankie Saenz minus 155 taking on Augusto Tanquino Mendes plus 135. So super interesting fight here. This might be the most discussed fight on Twitter from this card. Mendes. Mendes, he's unproven, man, but this is his chance to prove himself. This fight is going to tell us so much about Augusto Mendes and fights that really you can learn a lot from. I look forward to a lot, man. So, but yeah, he's got a tough cat in front of him in Frankie Saenz, though. I mean, clearly Mendes has the BJJ advantage. Nobody's disputing that. I mean, world champion, one of the best there is, but who knows if he can even get it to the ground, man. Frankie Saenz is the much better wrestler, and he's got good movement to avoid takedowns. Mendes, he is good with the trips, and Saenz is susceptible to them. But I think he's good enough with scrambles to avoid being put in tough spots. And also worth noting, his BJJ is not terrible like some people are thinking. Some people act like, yes, obviously Mendes does have a big advantage, but it's not like Saenz doesn't know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing, and I do think he's going to be able to, survive, man. He's solid down on the mat, so I think Frankie Saenz gets it done here, man. My official pick is going to be Frankie Saenz via a 30-27 decision, just via him keeping on the feet and outstriking Mendes. When it comes to betting, if you're going to make a bet on this fight, I would recommend Frankie Saenz. Personally, I have not made that bet yet. I am waiting for a little bit better of a line on Frankie Saenz. Unfortunately, the money is coming on Frankie Saenz at the moment. Mendes was like a plus 125 not too long ago, plus 135 now. For me to bet on Frankie Saenz, I would need minus 120. And if it gets to minus 120, I would most likely throw a 1.2 unit bet on that. But moving on to the main card here, man. We got Sergio Pettis minus 140 taking on John Moraga plus 120. So solid flyweight matchup here between a rising contender and a regressing but more proved veteran. Basically here, man, with Moraga coming in on short notice, looking worse every fight. He's also talking about retirement. I think this is a tough fight for him, man. He's usually pretty gun shy, and Pettis lately he's been throwing tons of volume in his recent fights. So I just see Pettis outstriking Moraga here over the course of 3 rounds. But if Moraga can make it dirty, which I think maybe he can, and get it to the mat, I think he can lock up a good position and possibly get the submission. But Sergio Pettis, he's just an improving guy. Moraga is a regressing guy. So this is a pretty easy pick for me, man. But my official pick is going to be Sergio Pettis via a 30-27 decision. I would recommend a bet on Sergio Pettis at the price. He's minus 140 now. The one play I do have in this fight, I have 1 unit on Sergio Pettis via decision at plus 130. So, because that's basically the only way I see him winning. It would be very tough for him to get a tough guy like John Moraga out of there. But moving on here, man. We got Ben Killabee Saunders minus 115 taking on Court McGee minus 105. So, good matchup here between two staples in the welterweight division. Both guys are basically in the same spot in their career, and this is also a really even matchup. I was having a very tough time picking a winner, but ultimately I am going to go with my original gut pick from when the fight was announced. But getting into it, man, so on the feet, I think Court McGee has the advantage on the feet and could crack Ben Saunders. He has been cracked before and does have a little bit of tall man defense, and Court does have big power. His last fight, he did drop Dominic Steele in like 3 seconds or something crazy like that. Almost got the fastest KO in UFC history. But I do think Court McGee can stuff the majority of the takedowns, but Ben Saunders will get it down eventually, I think, and obviously does have a BJJ advantage. So I think he could give Court some problems on the ground, but ultimately, man, I'm going to give my official pick to Court McGee via a 29-28 decision. And when it comes to betting, if the line gets better on him, like plus 120, I think I might take the stab on that, but as of right now, no bets. It's a pass for me. But moving on to the co-main event here, we got Joe Lauzon down to minus 125 now, taking on Marcin Held plus 105. So awesome fight here between the young stud and the grizzled vet. Marcin Held, in my opinion, is he's not ready for these super experienced fighters, and I think Diego Sanchez went out there and proved that in Marcin's last fight. And man, Joe Lauzon is much sharper than Diego Sanchez at this point. Lauzon's downfall is that he can be a bit of an open target sometimes, but I don't think Marcin Held is a guy that can take advantage of that, to be honest. Marcin's strength is also Joe Lauzon's biggest strength, which is the grappling, which makes it even tougher for Marcin Held. Joe Lauzon, he's just way too experienced and crafty on the ground himself to get caught in something, in my opinion. So, that being said, I really do like Joe Lauzon to simply outpoint Marcin Held on the feet and the ground over 3 rounds. So my official pick is going to be Joe Lauzon via a 30-27 decision. I do have Joe Lauzon in a parlay, and I also have the over in a parlay. Like I said, we are going to be talking about all 6 of my bets after we get into this main event. But speaking of the main event, we do have Yair Rodriguez minus 470 taking on the returning legend BJ Penn plus 325. So I am going to go on a bit of a rant here. So man, I know people have a lot of different opinions on this fight, but me personally, I do not want to see BJ Penn back in the octagon. He should not be back in the octagon. He is a Hall of Famer, already a Hall of Famer. Just the biggest award you can receive in sports, and he doesn't need to come back. He doesn't. He's a Hall of Famer. He has nothing to prove. I feel like he's just coming back to push away all the personal shit he has going on in his life. Just push it away, like the domestic violence accusation. Who knows what this guy's doing, man? I mean, fighting was his life, so who knows how he's been spending his free time, but he says he is motivated to get back into the fight game and win some fights, and I do believe him. I do believe him that he is motivated, but there's that running joke about a motivated BJ Penn, but I just think he's so shot to the point where it does not matter at all, man. And a 2-year layoff along with being shot, that's tough, man. All he really has left is his power. He does have good power, and his BJJ, and against a great developing prospect in Yair Rodriguez, I'm not sure he has it in him anymore to land that power. Yair's just gonna have such a big speed advantage, or get it to the ground, man. I think Yair's just gonna be using too much movement, and have his takedown defense will hold up. I don't see BJ getting it to the ground, so man, I just see Yair just going absolute savage mode on BJ Penn, and just piecing him up on the feet with punches and kicks. I would hope he would. I would hope he wouldn't try anything too crazy, so like he usually does, so he doesn't get caught, because that's really the only way he's gonna lose. But even if he does get caught, he is a super durable young dude. So I do have a ridiculously hard time seeing BJ Penn win this fight. My official pick is going to be Yair Rodriguez via a second round TKO. I do have Yair in some parlays. I do have a total of 3 units risked on him. So let's get into the 6 bets I have for this card. 2 straight bets, 4 parlays right now. Starting with the straight bets, I have 1 unit on Sergio Pettis via decision to win 1.3 units. I have 0.7 units on Alexei Oleinik, wins in the distance to win 1.2. I have 1 unit on Yair Rodriguez and Joe Lauzon to win 1.1. I have 1 unit on Yair Rodriguez, Walt Harris to win 1.1. And I have 1 unit on Yair Rodriguez, wins in the distance, parlayed with the Ansaroff Lybarger fight, goes over to win 1.1. And lastly, I have Tony Martin parred with the Joe Lauzon over 2.5 rounds to win 1.1 units. So that is going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like the video if you made it this far. It just takes 2 seconds of your time. Subscribe if you're already not. There is big things coming to this channel. And comment below. Tell me who you're betting on, man. So, yeah, I'm going to get up out of here. And above all, always enjoy the fights.